la la la.
Previously on GX, a mysterious stranger wearing a tablecloth and gravity-defying ribbons successfully defeated all the most attractive people on the island, except for Chumley, who was using Pharaoh the cat as a protective shield. And then beams of rainbow light shot up from the ocean all around Academy Island, presumably marking the spots where Principal Shepherd had all the Care Bears buried at sea after hitting them with his Range Rover. This episode of YGO GX is called Amnail's Endgame Part 1, Amnail being alluded to in the previous episode as his symbol kept showing up whenever the stranger took down one of his opponents, and Endgame, of course, referring to how Jaden is going to be summoning various rear ends during this children's card game. The episode begins with Chaz waking up in some kind of void, trapped inside a bubble, and he spots Alexis and her brother Atticus both in similar bubble-based prisons. Clearly this has all been the work of elemental hero Bubble Man. He's tired of playing second Bubble Banana to Flame Wing Man and Bustinatrix. That cocky smile was clearly hiding sinister motives this whole time. It turns out they're in space, and Chaz is looking directly at planet Earth. That's one small Chaz it up for a man. One giant Manjome Sandar for mankind. You know Chaz's best character because the villain had to literally relocate him off-planet in order to stand a chance of winning. But before you can say ground control to Major Chaz, we get the classic Yu-Gi-Oh! GX opening theme. David Bowie would have loved Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Crowler is basically a one-to-one for Ziggy Stardust, and we all know how much he loved Heroes. Jaden, Cyrus, and Chum Chum are all still shocked by the giant Pink Floyd-esque laser display, and Jaden concludes that it must be emanating from the spirit gates. And this is confirmed when Ojama Yellow speaks to him via one of Chaz's discarded cards. This is weird to me because I feel like if Jaden can't see the Ojama spirits when he's standing next to Chaz, he shouldn't be able to see this, but what do I know? The gang realize this means all the other key holders have been defeated except Jaden, and Cyrus encourages Jaden to hide immediately so he can't get his spirit key. Yeah, good luck getting the guy dressed in bright red who can't resist screaming catchphrases at the top of his lungs to make himself undetectable. Jaden defiantly declares that they don't need to worry about the 7th Shadow Rider finding him, as he's gonna find that guy first. Are you though? You just spent an entire episode fillering about in the forest, and the most you uncovered was that there's a surprisingly large snake population on Academy Island. Jaden announces,
I want you guys to be there when I beat this guy and we save the world!
Might I be excused so that I can be in the litter box when you beat that guy and save the world? I ate a lot of snakes off screen in the previous episode and I need to process them. Meow. Pharaoh the cat, baby. Over at the abandoned dorm, which seems to be not so abandoned after all, we see deep in the spookiest parts of the building that the 7th Shadow Rider is standing over a coffin looking for all the world like Mum-Ra from Thundercats. More like Bum-Ra from Chundercats. He then says all that remains is the endgame, where Jaden will face a duel trial unlike anything he's ever seen. So presumably just a bunch of cards with funky rules, I'm guessing. The target logo appears in the ground, so one must conclude that the abandoned dorm used to be Academy Island's only Target store, which explains all the evil shenanigans that go down there. Half the booster packs I've bought from Target have had cards pilfered from them, so I can only assume that was the 7th Shadow Rider up to no good as well. Back in the forest, a lightning strike blasts a nearby tree, and Jaden and friends watch as the mighty oak collapses into the lake. Jaden takes this opportunity to call dibs on his favorite Diddy Kong racing character.
Timber?
The same glowing symbol appears upon the remaining husk of the tree trunk, and somehow Chumley correctly identifies it as
The mark of Amnail!
Which has to be the one thing any of these children have retained from their school lessons, which is remarkable, given that it was Crowler teaching them about it, and even he didn't know what the hell he was talking about. The symbol keeps manifesting further and further away, and Cyrus comments,
It's trying to lead us someplace.
Not licious!
Okay, so if any of you had the mark of Amnail on the list, remove it from the list right now. We've got new data from Chumley. The symbol inevitably leads the group to the abandoned dorm, and they begin to explore its haunted house-like interior. Jaden says,
Should've known. The abandoned dorm was where all of this started. Makes sense it would end here.
I mean, it's where Atticus got snatched, sure, but didn't all of this technically start when some dope decided that hiding the sacred beasts underneath a school would be the safest place for them? Like, as far as I remember, your first encounter here was against that Titan guy, and he was barely connected to any of the Shadow Rider stuff. And when he was consumed by darkness, none of you seemed fazed. Now I'm supposed to believe you recognize the significance of this place? Feels more like abandoned sound logic to go with your abandoned dorm. Lightning strikes outside once again, and it startles Pharaoh the cat, who leaps out of Chumley's ironclad embrace and launches himself deeper into the heart of the creepy building. Bruh! I've watched Banner play enough Resident Evil to know how this goes. Later, humans! Enjoy being whatever the zombie equivalent of Fancy Feast is. Bioniazard by Catcom. Pharaoh the cat, out. Jaden and the others follow Pharaoh deeper into the abandoned dorm's abandoned bowels, and they come across the underground arena, complete with spooky coffin that gives them all the heebiest of jeebies.
A coffin!
Or a refrigerator box.
Given that we all know there is no death in Yu-Gi-Oh!, the odds are actually in favor of it being a refrigerator box. What if all of the graveyards in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dub are just filled with buried fridges? So many cold ones just going to waste 6 feet under. Jaden asks Chumley to help open the coffin up because, right, that's priority number 1 here, apparently. And Chumley responds dumbly,
Sorry, Jay. I'm only good at opening pickle jars and potato chips.
Sure, but what is a coffin if not just a very hefty bag of potato chips? In both cases, all the freshness remains locked inside, and the contents are usually way smaller than the container would suggest. I personally hope my corpse is salt and vinegar flavor. Jaden successfully desecrates a tomb and forces the coffin lid off, revealing the mummified corpse of what is very obviously Professor Banner. But of course, Jaden isn't convinced just yet, so he sneaks a peek at the cadaver's name tag, and hilariously, yes, it says Banner. To be fair, I think a lot of teachers would rather die than continue dealing with Jaden Yuki as a student for another several years. Also, don't forget to check what flavor his corpse is, Jaden. I'm guessing smoky bacon. The kids have their doubts.
No way! Professor Banner couldn't have mummified this fast. I can't even make beef jerky in the amount of time he's been missing.
Next time Chumley offers me beef jerky, I'm going to have concerns given that he's comparing the process to the mummification of a human corpse and all. The mysterious stranger appears and insists that the body does indeed belong to Professor Banner, and Jaden demands to know who he is. Ojama Yellow manifests upsettingly beside Jaden and says that it's the 7th Shadow Rider, and to get Chaz back, Jaden needs to beat him. I guess Ojama Yellow must have imprinted on Jaden since Chaz got launched into orbit or something. The Shadow Rider finally reveals his identity to be
Amnail.
So you're Amnail, as in the mark of Amnail, Amnail?
No, man, a completely different, unrelated Amnail. It's a pretty wild coincidence, popular name, I guess. Amnail reveals that he has all of Jaden's friends trapped inside his wee little book. And we see Alexis and Atticus still fast asleep inside their space bubbles, while Fraz chantically hammers his fists on the magical walls, keeping him from reaching them. This must be what the GX fans felt like when they kept seeing me diss the show despite being stuck in my own bubble of ignorance. Amnail explains that if Jaden can't defeat him, he'll never again see his beloved friends Chaz, Alexis, and I suppose Atticus also qualifies. Jaden demands to know how he can get his beloved Professor Banner back, and Amnail replies that it's best to forget about the one he knew as Banner, and that the only way to understand everything is to duel and defeat him. Well, the good news is, since they're underground, he can't rely on his bullshit rocks fall from the sky and everything explodes strategy, in theory. He continues to say that only when Jaden defeats him will the secrets of this tome he's holding be unlocked. Starting to think Amnail's just a very aggressive book salesman. You can't force these kids to read. They play Yu-Gi-Oh! They're not known for doing that. Jaden, of course, accepts the challenge and announces,
"Let's throw down!"
And I really need to take a moment to remind you that this is something the guy is saying like a minute or two after uncovering the emaciated corpse of one of his mentors. Really feels like he could have been a little more reverent or dramatic about it, but no, it's catchphrase time, of course. Amnail pulls back his hood and reveals, oh, okay, it's clearly Banner just with white hair. Obviously there's some identity shenanigans happening here. But none of the kids seem to clock it, presumably because he doesn't have a name tag on that says Banner right where everyone can see it. Even more catchphrases occur on the burial site of Jaden's former tutor.
And now, Amnail, get your game on!
I really hope someone plays children's card games on my grave, and they play electric guitar the whole time and say catchphrases. It's the only way I'd feel like my death was really worth anything. The duel starts off and Jaden repeats,
"All right, time to throw down, because I'm getting my friends back!"
which is different from throwing it back in order to get your friends down bad. That's a whole other thing. Amnail Banner, or Bamnail, explains why Jaden can't win.
To beat me, you'll have to reach a whole new echelon of dueling expertise.
Not sure that's how you say echelon. It sounds like you're saying edge-along. And I don't know if anyone wants to participate in your edge-along, Amnail. Maybe Cyrus if the Dark Magician Girl shows up again. Amnail activates the card Chaos Distill, which means all his cards that would be destroyed will instead be removed from play, combining it with Steel Lamp, which allows him to summon Alchemy Beast Salamandra the Steel, which looks like what if Red Eye's Black Dragon had a baby with Mechagodzilla, but also had the attack points of a coughing old age pensioner. Amnail explains that alchemy beasts are able to attack directly and can only be summoned by these special means, and he uses spell cards to summon a bunch more of them, namely Ouroboros the Bronze and Leon the Lead. I love the duality of the names Ouroboros and Leon. Would probably work better if you shortened Ouroboros to just Boris, make Leon feel a little less self-conscious about his name. Also, I've got to ask, does Ouroboros live up to his name? Is he able to eat his own ass? Because that face looks like the face of someone who's eaten his own ass and lived to tell the upsettingly gross tale. Jaden summons Bubble Man, Yu-Gi-Oh's version of the Tick, and we learn that out of Jaden's entire deck, Bubble Man is the only one who confesses that he's gay.
I summon Hero Bubble Man! And since he's the only one out...
And Jaden equips him with his Bubble Bazooka and commands him to fire with Bubble Bombarding Barrage. What a load of bubble bollocks, man. Amnail comments on the recent rise of Gen AI.
That is one bubble that I'm afraid I must burst.
Amnail activates trap card Elemental Absorber, allowing him to negate any of Jaden's attacks by removing a monster with the same attribute from play, and he stops Bubble Man in his moist, sopping tracks by tossing aside his own Aqua Spirit. I like how Aqua Spirit's artwork is just her being like, guess I'll die. That's the spirit, Aqua. The alchemy beasts convert Jaden's life points into pain points by attacking him directly, and when Chumley tries to encourage Jaden to just get through this turn and then he'll have the upper hand, Amnail scoffs that they should have paid more attention in class so they'd know with his alchemy deck things aren't what they seem. Oh, so now we're ignoring the lyrics to the opening theme? Because as far as I'm aware, back at class they never taught us this. Who am I supposed to believe, Amnail? You or a theme song? Amnail activates a card that looks like a misprint that he just held onto because it looks cool, and apparently it lets him discard all his monsters on the field and draw 2 new cards per monster he throws out. Jaden is aghast.
So then you're taking out your own monsters?
That is the way of the alchemist. Destruction and rebirth.
Also, sometimes combining your daughter with your pet dog. That is also the way of the alchemist on occasion. We've got a lot of weird, f***ed-up ways we like to do things. Amnail threatens to take Jaden's copy of the new Final Fantasy VII game.
No rebirth for you.
I like that Amnail's talking all this shit while Bubble Man has a bazooka aimed at his face. I could never handle that kind of water pressure myself. Amnail uses a bunch more spells in order to summon even more alchemy beasts, including a bird, a fish, and a testicle with a smiley face. Jaden responds by summoning elemental hero Clayman, and he buffs it with Mud Max, which seems to be Clayman's own little kart racer. I guess that theoretical game of Diddy Kong Racing came true after all. Unfortunately, Amnail uses Elemental Absorber, which negates the attack, causing Clayman to drive right into a bunch of rocks. This is what happens most times I try using a shortcut in Mario Kart, to be fair. Amnail says,
To be triumphant, you will need to use your cards in a way you've never used them before.
oh instead of throwing down a face down, Jaden must catch up a back up? No longer can you get your game on, you must instead drop your work off. Or maybe it's just a simple case of summoning monsters with huge gazongas instead of massive dumpers. That would be out of left field. Amnail activates yet another misprint-looking deal and uses it to summon Golden Homunculus. Chumley and Cyrus look frightened because they think he's threatening to teach them all calculus, but no, it's a giant golem. Amnail explains how it works, and the writers don't clock that they use the words U and C twice in quick succession.
Golden Homunculus doesn't work like any other card you see. You see.
Golden Homunculus's attack points are equal to the number of monsters Amnail has removed from play, multiplied by 300. Aha, so there is a math lesson happening here. Chumley and Cyrus were right to be worried. The various weaker alchemy beasts attack, dropping Jaden's life points to 1,000. In this moment, with the fate of the world at stake and Jaden's life at risk, Cyrus sounds as concerned as someone watching a TikTok of an old man walking into a park bench and folding over.
He got nailed.
Finally, Golden Homunculus attacks with Golden Shard Storm, and when Amnail gloats over what appears to be the finishing blow, the smoke parts and Jaden lets out a loud chuckle, using the same line he's likely used on all his teachers when being held back a grade.
Hate to disappoint you, but I'm still here.
Turns out Jaden can negate the attack by discarding his Mudmax spell card, which to me is Mud spelled backwards, aka dumb, and then he's able to summon another elemental hero, namely Avion, who proceeds to man-spread dramatically. Or is that bird spread? Either way, you get an eye full of feathers and crotch. And crotch feathers. Would hate to sleep on a pillow stuffed with those. Somehow I would just know I was sleeping on Avion crotch, and I'd be up all night thinking about it. Jaden then summons elemental hero Bustinatrix, proving my earlier theory about needing to summon huge Gazongas accurate. And when Jaden attempts to attack with both monsters, Amnail sacrifices two similarly attributed monsters to negate their efforts. Jaden deduces,
I guess I'll just have to use something other than my elemental heroes then.
with all the world ending and alchemy and mummified corpses, somehow this statement is the most shocking thing in this entire episode. Holy crap, he's gonna do something out of character. Wow! Jaden activates Burst Return, which... yeah, we're just gonna stay here and look at this card for a while, if you guys are okay with that. Yeah. Some very impressive shading going on here. 4Kids Sensors just sort of threw their hands up and were like, the boobies are too powerful, sorry. And boy, were they not wrong. Silly Sensors, Bustinatrix is not 4Kids. Burst Impact is then activated, which I was definitely at risk of myself looking at that last card, causing all monsters except Bustinatrix to be destroyed and doing 300 points of damage for every monster Amnail loses. Upon taking the hit, Amnail flinches and his mask gets a big old crack. Then out of nowhere, Pharaoh the cat arrives, and Cyrus picks him up assuming he's on their side. But much like Hulk Hogan betraying Randy Savage at Bash at the Beach 1996, Pharaoh shows his true colors by slashing Cyrus's face and rushing over to Amnail's side of the arena. Bruh, you can call this the Mew World Order of card games, brother. As far as I'm concerned, Mean Gene, all of this crap in my litter box represents these fans out here. Meow, heel turn. From Pharaoh the cat. The penny slowly drops for each of our heroes as Pharaoh rubbing up against Amnail finally clues them into the fact that this isn't some random villain. It is indeed, as he reveals, Professor Banner himself, only with more veiny veins all over his facey face. Clearly just exacerbated stress lines from having to teach Academy students about bloody alchemy when they're only there to learn about the newest card game strats. Jaden quite smartly is like, wait, if you're Banner, who is that corpse over there? And Amnail explains that is also Professor Banner. It's very Yu-Gi-Oh of him to have a copy of himself lying around, but could he at least open a window and let all the Banner corpse stench out? It's gotta be nasty down there. I wouldn't want to breathe my own corpse fumes. Banner ends the episode cryptically suggesting that there's more going on here than the kids realize. Especially Chumley, who thinks they're still trying to find the golden egg witch down here somewhere. And he adds emphatically that the truth will be revealed soon enough. And then he pets Pharaoh the cat for good measure. Bruh. Less truth, more scritches. Meow. And that's the end of the episode. Yeah, this episode is a significant improvement from the last one. I know they kind of had to set the stage with the previous episode by having Amnail or Banner eliminate all the other duelists that could have stood up against him. I get it. I get why they did it that way. I get what they were going for. But it was still a whole lot of nothing. Whereas this episode feels more focused. It feels more about the reveal. And it also features an actual card game as opposed to just the highlights of a card game, most of which consist of people getting eliminated at the very last stage. And I'm not usually a huge proponent of the card game aspect of Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm usually the kind of guy who's like, focus on characters, not the card game. I could give or take the card game in most situations. Whereas here, especially when you look at that previous episode where the card game stuff was mostly just for drama's sake and to establish why people are getting sort of written out momentarily, this was a big relief for me to actually get into a card game where Amnail was actually summoning things that threw Jaden for a loop. Obviously, it's going to end with Jaden winning, I assume. But at least we have tension here. And it's character-based tension. It's not just card game tension, which is usually where I check out, you know. If the card game is just like, oh no, how is Jaden going to win? I usually am like, well, he's going to win because he's Jaden. That's how it works. Whereas here, there's actual, like, conflict that's interesting, emotional conflict with Jaden and Banner. Like, this is significant stuff for him as a person. It's not just about winning a game. Right here, it's about figuring out what happened to Banner, what his motivation is. Ultimately, can he defeat Banner and get his teacher back? I'm assuming not. It seems pretty cut and dry that one of the Banners is dead, if not the only one that they like. I feel like I genuinely don't know where this is going. I don't remember exactly how this plays out at all. But it seems like the good Banner was like a skin that this Amnail Banner had to shed in order to, achieve his plan. It's been pretty clear for a while that Banner has had ulterior motives beyond just teaching these kids about alchemy. So it's cool to see that come to fruition, and I assume in the next episode we're going to get a much deeper insight into what the heck is actually going on with Banner, make him less of a one-note character as a result, so I'm really enjoying that prospect. And it's just cool to be, in the bowels of the abandoned dorm where, it's not just creepy haunted house. It's, this is what this has all been building towards, is this ritual chamber where some stuff is going down. I don't know what it is. And it's nice to have Chumley along for the ride, I feel like he's going away in several episodes' time, so I am happy that he gets to be part of this very significant climax. I'm kind of sad that Chaz was sidelined. I understand it's kind of cool for him because it suggests that, he was actually a threat to the villain here, but yeah, I miss him. I miss Chaz's the Chaz dynamic. I want to say a big thank you to all of our Patreon supporters, anyone who's ever pledged to the Patreon in the past or recently, even if you just pledged today. Thank you so much for anything that you've been able to give and anything you have given in the past. I really do appreciate all of your constant patience. We're coming up on 20 years of content creation for me. Since 2006, I've been doing YouTube stuff. So thank you, those of you. I know I haven't had a Patreon for that long, but thank you to all of you that have ever supported my content, even outside of Patreon. Thank you so much. Tune in next time for more of Amnail's brand of bullshit, where I assume he's gonna finally reveal what his whole deal is. I can only assume that we're going to learn all about Amnail. It's going to be a big Amnail extravaganza. They're going to hit the Amnail on the head. Otherwise, they're just going to be jerking us around about this whole Professor Banner thing, and I can't imagine they're going to do that toward the end of the season, as we are. We're so close to the end of Season 1 of GX, guys. I'm really proud of us. I'll catch you next time.
No rebirth for you. No rebirth for you. No rebirth for you. No rebirth for you.